Hey guys. I think the beginning of my videos kind of cuts out, so I need to wait a hot second. Um, but I wanted to make a video about the books I read in 2017 because it's March 1st and I should I should probably do that. I'm a little late to that party. Uh, but I really had I'm really happy with 2017 when it came to reading. 2017 can go to hell. I mean, it was a dumpster fire, so it was kind of hell. And it doesn't seem to stop anytime soon. But I can still have stories. So I wanted to go through a couple of like some of the stats that I did for 2017. So I'm just going to read off a couple of things on my Goodreads page. So, first of all, I read 48 books. My goal was 20 just because I hadn't read too much the year before, and so I wanted to set it lower, and I doubled it plus. So I am extremely happy about that. Um, so with those 48 books, I read 16,195 pages, which cool. Um, The longest book I read was Whiteacre by Philippa Gregory. I loved that book. That was actually a reread for me. I think I read it like in 2013 or something, 2012 or 2013, and I remembered really liking it, and I really liked it again. So that one, it's not like the most action-packed book or anything, but it was an enjoyable historical fiction romance thing. I don't know. Speaking of romance, 2017 was the year I got into romance. And I have a couple of books to share with you, and one author, and then another one I'm going to try because I've heard amazing things. So I'm really excited to get to that, but we're not there yet. So, um, first of all, I had forgot this actually, and then I looked on Goodreads and I was like, oh my god, I did. I started off the year reading one of the most popular books of 2017, which was 1984 by George Orwell. I had never read this book before, which I know is kind of a travesty, but you know, my high school didn't make me do it, so whatever. I did it. And wow. I read that in January of 2017, and that book made me angry. It made me feel all the feels. Um, yeah, after what's his fuck was elected. Yeah, yeah. So so I read 1984, and it didn't make me feel better, but it was really scary. So if you haven't read it, I highly recommend 1984. If you haven't read it, just read it. It is so good. Yeah. The least popular book that I read was words. Women Warriors of World War II by Jeanette Reed. This one was really good. It was a lot shorter than I was thinking. It doesn't say how many pages it is on this one. Um, but it was a bunch of interviews from women, um, excuse me, I believe second generation mostly, women who their mothers or them themselves, depending on where they are in their lives, um, was talking about their experience working during World War II in Scotland. Super interesting. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of books that I want to read in that area, but man, it was good. Excuse me. So let me see. I also read The Hate You Give last year, and if you haven't read The Hate You Give, fix yourself. Highly recommend it. I read it so fast. It's a huge book. I don't have it with me right now. I loaned it out to a friend. I've loaned it out to a few friends because this should be required reading, and it's definitely in my brain an instant classic and will be read for years and years and years to come, as it should be. So, The Hate U Give, read it. And here is a book that I actually have with me. God forbid. So this one I first listened to on Audible in January, and this is kind of when I started taking audiobooks to work with me, you know, on my phone, but whatever. Whoops. So I was working kind of in like a spirally tower at the top of some stairs, and I was completely alone. So I brought audiobooks and I listened to this one, and thank God I was alone because I was crying all over this book. Like it was so good. I have read it 5 or 7 times. I think I read it 4 or 5 times in January and February. I listened to it over and over and over and over again. It was so good. And this book, I'll show it to you now, is I don't have my camera up, so I just want to make sure you can see it. Buffering by Hannah Hart. So Hannah is a YouTuber, and I haven't really been, you know, terribly excited for any of the YouTubers' books coming out. And even hers, like I didn't really know much about it, but I know that I enjoy Hannah's videos and she's fun, and I wanted to support her, and I wanted a different book to read, and so I just grabbed it on a whim. And I had no idea how emotional and just, you know how people say like sometimes you need to reparent yourself if your parents weren't the parents that they should have been when you were a kid or what you needed at that time. You need to like reparent yourself. And this book was a lot of reparenting for me, kind of in a way. The book is basically the story of her life, which I had no idea is the way it is or was the way it was and everything. But it's kind of a collection of her journals and things. She kept some journals growing up. Let me see if I can. So the book is kind of interspersed with photos of some of her journals and things. And oh, it's just so good. I also highly recommend the audiobook because Hannah reads it, and her emotion and everything in it is just so wonderful. So wonderful. So Buffering by Hannah Hart, highly recommend it. You're going to cry though, so just be ready. But you're also going to laugh so much. Her personality comes out through the pages. Again, if you have the audiobook, I had to buy the book just because I know it's going to be one that I'm going to read over and over again, and I might want to mark it up. I don't know what I want to do with that, but that's a book I had to have. So that's kind of where I am with that. Let's see. Just looking at some of the other ones that I read to see what I want to talk about, because I'm not going to get to all 48. Just deal with it. Okay, so one that I read. Sorry, I'm getting a text. This is one that I want to recommend to absolutely everyone. So let me find this on here. There it is. This book is called Radium Girls. See if it'll focus. There we go. So, Radium Girls, The Dark Story of America's Shining Women by Kate Moore. This, I think, should be a must read. It's a true story about the women who were working during World War I in early 1900s. And, men all went off to war, so the women had to step it up and work, obviously. And we're awesome, so go women. Go good people in general, but go women. Anywho, so it's about the women who worked in the radium dial factory. So they would make like watch faces and clocks and things using radium because it would glow in the dark, and so you could see all the stuff in the dark. And the radium gave them cancer all over the place. And it's the story of these women fighting for decades, honestly, decades, to prove to this stupid employer, and again, all true stories, that they were all getting all these cancers at all of these different plants across, I think, East Coast mainly, and then I think there was one in Canada. But it is infuriating. It is awful. It's a whole, basically the author, Kate Moore, was looking into this time period, and the only books that she could find were just very sterile. It wasn't about the people. It was documentation of the court stuff and all the readouts and transcripts and stuff from that, but nothing to tell their actual stories. And so she took it upon herself to go around and interview, and she got journals and things from family members, and it is infuriating, but it is so, so amazing that these women just kept fighting and kept fighting through just everything, like rapid spreading cancer to every part of their body, and still fighting, and just so good. I'm rambling. Read it. Just read it. Is amazing. So I read that. Moving on. I also read Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. There are a lot of different views on this book. I was born in 88, so I remember more of the 90s than I do anything of the 80s. So I'm definitely a 90s child. And so, to people who were living in the 80s, this might have been, it seems like people who were alive during the 80s liked it less than the ones who came after. And I haven't done scientific studies, whatever. But I really enjoyed it. I felt like I was in the world. I really enjoyed it. I listened to this one on audiobook when I was taking the train from Oregon to Washington. So it's like a 7 or 8 hour train ride. So I just put this in, and it had Wil Wheaton narrating it, which I freaking love it. There's even a point in the book where the main character says something about, Wil Wheaton should be president, and it was just kind of funny to hear Wil Wheaton say that. So, yes, basically that is a sci-fi futuristic world where, people go into like a VR world. And the majority of people can go to school in the VR world, they play a game in the VR world, whatever. And the creator of this game in this world, I believe, does he pass away? I don't think so. I don't remember. But he left some Easter eggs and some clues, and basically whoever finds all these clues gets to have his fortune. So obviously all the gamers are going crazy. So it's kind of the story of some of these characters who go through this world and are looking for this thing, and how that adventure goes. So I actually enjoyed it. Everyone's back and forth, make up your own mind, but I thought it was pretty good. Okay, and then this one might be a little bit controversial, but I read, excuse me, I read What Happened by Hillary Rodham Clinton. And, there were definitely times in this book where I'm like, I don't agree with that, or I don't think that's how it happened, or whatever. But I will say that the book did have some really good points, and it did help to kind of humanize Hillary a little bit. I just see her as stiff politician lady, you know, But it was a really interesting read, and I enjoyed kind of seeing a little bit of a more human side to her. So it was interesting. I would say recommend it just because of the historical fact that she was the first female Democratic nominee. You know, like that's fucking history. So why not read a book? But, you know, your choice, whatever. Your political views don't have to come into a book, you know, or at very least you listen to it, know what she's saying, and then you can better combat her arguments, which do it. Do it. So I read that and I enjoyed it. Okay. I also started, I started reading the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas, whatever. I read 1 through 4, so that is, like I can remember what order these are in. That's funny. I read them a little bit later in the year. Oh, that's not in order. Okay, I don't know what they are, but Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, and one other one that I can't remember. But I read those. I got to the 4th one, and I think kind of like around the time I was just starting the 4th one, I kind of wanted to be in another world, a different book. But there's one character who is not the main character. Her name is Menon, I think, from the Blackbeak Witch clan. Is it Blackbeak? Can't remember. But I love her storyline. I want to read the book with her as the main character, and so now I'm kind of off of Celaena. So now I'm just sad that there isn't a book about Manon. You know, but whatever. So, but I really did enjoy book 1 through 3, and 4 really wasn't bad. I think I was just already kind of taken out of it a little bit. So it's even possible that I might want to reread that one just because I was not in a good mood to read it. Basically, I was just listening for her storyline. But books 1 through 3 I really loved. I like Celaena as a character. I enjoy that she does have multiple love interests and not kind of a love triangle, but for the most part, like in book 1, she has one relationship, and in book 2, she has a different relationship. The characters are still there. Third book, does she have a third relationship in that one? I don't remember who she's with in the third one, and then in the 4th one, she's got a different one. Anyway, it's just really nice to see not everybody ends up together and has their happily ever after, especially if it's not a romance novel. You know, like why do people always end up with one person and that's the only person they ever end up with? Like, yeah, I hate it. We date, we do stuff. You know, so there's that. I think we're kind of getting into the romance books I wanted to mention, and I am so excited. Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm going because I'm almost at 20 minutes here. Sorry. So let's see. So I read, so I got into Tessa Dare. She's a romance writer, and, you know, before I kind of got back into it, or got into it for really the first time, I was always thinking that the romance books were like those like weak-willed women who just I'll do anything to make a man swoon and it'll just happen, blah blah blah. My whole world has opened up. The entire thing. There are so many feminist romance writers out there right now, and my whole world has opened up. I am so excited. And so many of these take place in Scotland or England or whatever. So many just Europe, and I love it. So the first one that I read was called Do You Want to Start a Scandal? Which automatically makes me think, do you want to build a snowman? You know, do you want to start a scandal? But I laughed my way through this entire book. It was so good. It's I think just about all of the books I've read of Tessa Dare's have been a later in the series one book, but it doesn't seem to really matter. I don't know if, because I've read like 4 or 5 different books from 4 or 5 different series, and they're all like the second or fourth or fifth or eighth book in the series. I don't think I've ever read the beginning of a series of hers yet, but it doesn't matter. I've been going completely on recommendation of what other people have been reading of hers, and I have not been led astray yet. I even found one of my absolute new favorite books, so I will get there. But there's Do You Want to Start a Scandal that I read, and what else of hers did I read? Okay, so I also read In Bed with the Devil. That one is that one isn't Tessa Dare. I thought I had only read Tessa Dare so far. So this one is by Lorraine Heath. In Bed with the Devil by Lorraine Heath. That, oh my god, I loved that book so much. I don't really have a synopsis in my head right now, and I'm so sorry. I read so many books last year, and I've been reading already this year, so I'm kind of like, ah. I also read A Week to Be Wicked by Tessa Dare, and this one was phenomenal. There was a point at the end where the woman is compared to a monsoon, and I know that doesn't sound very good or very exciting, but trust me, if you read it and when you get there, it's like a page or page and a half of one of the greatest compliments in the world, and then the main character comes back with just a snappy retort that totally makes sense, and I laughed so much. I think I either called my sister or I snapped her or I texted her. I did something, and then I also like texted her the whole scene or I read her the scene. I did something, but I had to have someone else enjoy this with me. And then I think I even read it to a few people at work. I was just like, you have to hear this. It's so funny. And it's so awesome. So that one was A Week to Be Wicked. And that one is kind of like a, a road trip romance. So it's set in Victorian era. I want to say it's in London. But the main character, the woman, I can't remember any of these names. I'm awful. I know. Wants to go to Scotland because there is a convention on, I think it's just animals. I believe that she draws fossils, or not draws fossils. I can't think of it. Oh my god, I'm totally screwing this up. But basically, she has ambition and drive, and she wants to be a part of this convention, but she needs to get to Scotland, and obviously, her mother's not going to let her go anywhere with some random man. So they kind of concoct this whole story that, they're getting married and they're totally in love, and, they kind of don't like each other, or they've heard rumors about each other, and so they're like feeling each other out, and so of course they get stuck in a horse-drawn carriage for a week. They get to know each other, spoiler alert. So I really enjoyed that one, but then I found this book, which is just, I think it's my new favorite. So I listened to it on Audible, and then I bought it. So this is When a Scot Ties the Knot by Tessa Dare. And I know, look at that cover. 1, yum. 2, yeah, it's a romance novel, but oh my god. So this book is easily one of my new favorites because the main character is coming of age for her season, but she doesn't want to get married. She doesn't need no man, and she's also like she's got anxiety. She doesn't like big crowds. She doesn't like meeting new people. She doesn't like talking to people. Which, hey, I'm making a video by myself in my room right now, so I get it. That was what mainly first drew me to this, was that she has anxiety and she doesn't want to do all that. So she makes up a man, and she's like, "Oh no, mom, like I totally met a dude and he's wonderful. We met down in the market. Oh, but he couldn't meet you because, he had to go off to war. Darn, how unlucky that is." Um, and so to keep up this charade, she has to receive letters from him and he has to receive letters from her and all that. So she writes all of these letters and sends them off, and she writes replies. And one day, many years later, so, many years later, her she decides that this charade is too much. It's gone on too long, so I need to kill him off. So she like gets a letter together or whatever, and basically says, "Oh man, he died in battle. Oh man, that's awful. Darn, mom. I guess I can't marry him, but now I have to be in mourning forever." And because her fiance died, her uncle gave her a castle in Scotland so that she can just do her work and do whatever she wants in a castle in Scotland. And all this happens in like the first 20 pages. So I'm not giving any spoilers right now. And then she's in her castle and she gets a knock on the door. And it's a man who, what the hell is his name? McKay something. Is it Captain Logan Mackenzie, which is the name she gave her man, her fictional man that she killed off. Captain Logan Mackenzie is now at her door, and her whole family is wondering, what the heck? Like, you died. And she knows that, and she and he know that they never met before. But he's been receiving her letters. And then that's pretty much where the book starts. Easily one of my new very favorite books. So I highly recommend. I think I talked about this one for, I don't know, 8, 10, 12, 50 minutes. I don't care. I would talk about this book all day. It's so good. So good. Let's see. Because I've already talked for almost a half an hour, I'm just going to real quick. I got this one today. It's called Hello Stranger by Lisa Kleypas. I don't know how to say it. But Dr. Garrett Gibson, the only female physician in London, is as daring and independent as any man. Why not take her pleasures like one? Yet she has never been tempted to embark on an affair until now. Dun dun dun! So I'm really excited to get into that one. Also, I almost forgot one that I read last year that I really enjoyed. Far From You by Tess Sharp. Can't really see it down there. There we go. Tess Sharp. This is a YA murder mystery, I would say. It takes place in like rural North California, and I want to say they're like 15 or 16, I believe. And let's see. So the back basically says, Sophie Winters nearly died twice. The first time, she's 14 and escapes a near-fatal car accident with scars, a bum leg, and an addiction to oxy that'll take years to kick. The second time, she's 17 and it's no accident. Sophie and her best friend Mina are confronted by a masked man in the woods. Sophie survives, but Mina is not so lucky. When the cops deem Mina's murder a drug deal gone wrong, casting partial blame on Sophie, no one will ever believe the truth. Sophie has been clean for months, and it was Mina who led her into the woods that night. So this one's really good. It's really good. Not too long. I flew through it pretty quick. It is 339 pages. Yeah, really good. Really good. Don't have a lot more to say. And it's been a half an hour. A half an hour talking about what the heck I read in 2017. It's already been a half an hour. Is there anything else I really randomly want to add? Thankfully, I think I put the most important ones at the beginning. I think I tried to think that way. I believe. Okay. So, yes, I think that is where I'm going to end it. I've rattled on for way too long, but if you've enjoyed any of these books, if you've read any of them, if any of them sound really good, let me know, because I loved my 2017 year of reading. I read so many just different spectrums of books, from YA fantasy to adult to biography to historical fiction to my first ever romances, which I think I read like 5 or 6 romance books this year or last year, which was so exciting to me. Never really done it. Yeah. So I'm really excited for 2018 to be another great reading year. Anywho's, I will talk to you guys later. Let me know about these books. I've talked about them for too long. I'm so sorry. If you hung out with me, thank you. I'm so sorry. Okay, bye.